You've heard it your whole life. You are not your job. It's a nice, neat little phrase we pull out to make ourselves feel better when a project blows up or a promotion goes to someone else. But has anyone ever actually warned you about the chaos that erupts when you try to separate the two? Has anyone explained the psychological freefall that happens when the identity you've spent decades building just vanishes? One day you have a title, a path, a person you're supposed to be, and the next, you're standing in the rubble, with no clue who you are without it. This isn't a story about finding a new job. This is the story of what happens when the job you thought was you is gone, and the painful, messy, and terrifying process of figuring out what's left. If you feel like you've lost the map to your own life, stay here. You are not alone in this wreckage. For most of our lives, we're willing participants in a system that fuses our value to our vocation. It starts so early, doesn't it? What do you want to be when you grow up? The question isn't who, it's what. It's the first hint that our doing is more important than our being. Then, as adults, it's the default question at every party, every family gathering. So, what do? We get the script, and we follow it. We build our entire lives around one central pillar, our career. That job title becomes a shorthand for our identity, our social status, even our personality. It's the first line in our bio and the centerpiece of our LinkedIn profile. In family psychology, there's a concept called enmeshment, which describes when the boundaries between people get so blurry that their identities fuse. While that term is usually for families, it's the perfect word for what happens when your professional identity consumes your personal one. This is what I call the label trap. We build our sense of self around external labels, CEO, marketing director, founder, instead of internal truths. We start to depend on the reflection we see in other people's eyes, a reflection based entirely on our job. So when that label gets stripped away, by a layoff, a resignation, a business failure, or even retirement, we don't just lose an income. We feel like we've ceased to exist. We experience this profound disorientation, a feeling of not knowing who we are outside of that job. And this isn't some crisis reserved for C-suite execs. This is for anyone who has ever felt a tremor of that void. If you've ever changed careers, moved to a new city where no one knows your professional history, or retired from a lifelong profession, you've felt this. No one warns you that the job is a mask, and when the mask falls, you feel like you've disappeared. This profound questioning, this feeling of being utterly adrift, it isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. It means you're waking up. For 12 years, I was a somebody. I was a creative director at a respected agency, and that title was my armor. It wasn't just what I did, it was who I was. It dictated my schedule, my social circle, my confidence. I'm a creative director was a complete sentence. It was a full identity. It meant I was successful, creative, a leader. My self-worth was benchmarked against the next project, the next award, the next rung on the ladder. The decision to leave wasn't a snap judgment. It was a slow burn of misalignment, a growing sense that the guy I was from 9 to 5 was getting further from the guy I was at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. I knew I had to leave for my own sanity. What I didn't realize at the time, and what research backs up, is that staying in a toxic, high-pressure job can often be more damaging to your mental and physical health than the uncertainty of leaving. So, I made the leap. I resigned, and for about a week, it was bliss, freedom. Then, the chaos set in. The structure that had governed my life was gone. The constant flood of emails, deadlines, and external validation vanished overnight. In its place was silence. A deeply unnerving, deafening silence. I'd wake up with a jolt of adrenaline, my body still wired for a crisis that didn't exist. My brain, addicted to the routine, went on high alert, searching for a threat it couldn't find. I was tired all the time, but I wasn't doing anything. This is the adrift feeling. The anchor was gone, and I was just floating. My self-esteem, once propped up by my title, plummeted. When I met new people and they asked the inevitable, "What do?" I'd stumble. "I'm in transition," I'd say, and I could feel their assessment of me shift. I was no longer a somebody. I was a question mark. Worse, though, was the ghost in the machine. The lingering identity of the creative director still lived in my head. It whispered about missed opportunities, judged my lack of productivity, and compared my quiet days to the frantic pace of my old life. This internal battle is exhausting, and it leads to what I can only call identity burnout, a deep fatigue that comes from the cognitive dissonance of not knowing who you're supposed to be. I wasn't the creative director anymore, but I wasn't anyone else yet, either. I was in a state of profound confusion, questioning everything. Was I actually creative, or was that just the job? Was I a leader, or was I just given a team? Who was I without the business card? The crisis wasn't about finding a new job. It was the terrifying realization that I didn't know who I was without one. So why is this part so rarely discussed? We celebrate the leap, we champion the pivot, but we almost never talk about the messy, painful chapter right after. Because we're conditioned to see our careers as a relentless climb forward. Looking back feels like weakness. But you can't build a new future until you've properly processed the past. The space between your old identity and your new one is what transition expert William Bridges called the neutral zone. It's a psychological wilderness where the old you is gone, but the new you hasn't arrived, and the only way through it is to grieve. This is more than a logistical change. It's like a psychological death. You have to mourn the person you were and the future you once imagined. It's completely normal to feel a sense of grief, depression, and anxiety after losing a major role in your life. Skipping this step is why so many people get stuck. They slap a new label on an unhealed wound, jumping into a new job or business, only to find the same emptiness waiting. You have to give the ghost of your old identity a proper burial. So how do you do that? It starts with naming the loss. Be brutally honest. What did you actually lose? Maybe it was the status, the quiet respect in the room. Maybe it was the community. The inside jokes, the after-work drinks, the feeling of belonging to a tribe. Maybe it was the certainty, the predictable rhythm, the clear path, knowing your role in the world. Maybe it was a part of the work you truly loved. Write it down, say it out loud. I miss the respect. I miss my team. I miss feeling important. When you give a name to what you've lost, you shrink its power. You turn this vague, overwhelming dread into concrete losses you can actually process. Next, audit your anchors. Your identity is a collection of small roles and routines. List all the things that anchored you: your morning commute podcast, that specific coffee shop, being the go-to expert on a certain topic. Look at that list and acknowledge which of those anchors are gone. This isn't about wallowing. It's about facing the empty spaces so you can consciously choose what to fill them with, instead of letting them echo with ghosts. If this is resonating, and you're seeing your own story in this journey, consider subscribing. We're about to walk through the how, the practical steps to rebuild, and I want you to be here for it. Grieving clears the rubble so you can build something new. But how do you build a new identity from scratch when you feel like you have no tools and no blueprint? It's not one grand act of reinvention. It's a series of small, deliberate steps. I call this the identity rewrite. Step 1. Radically separate your worth from your roles. This is the hardest and most important step. Society constantly tells us our value is tied to our productivity. You have to consciously, repeatedly reject that. Your self-worth is not your net worth. Your value as a human doesn't fluctuate with the stock market or your job title. Treat this like a daily practice. Say it in the mirror. My worth is inherent. It doesn't need to be earned. Think of it this way. Your self-worth is the operating system. Your job is just an app. When you delete the app, the computer doesn't become worthless. It just has more space. Practice identifying your worth through qualities that have nothing to do with work. Your kindness, your curiosity, your loyalty. Step 2. Develop a new language. In the label trap, you describe yourself with nouns. I am a manager. I am a lawyer. To break free, start using verbs and skills.
Instead of "I was a CEO," try "I'm someone who builds teams and solves complex problems." Instead of "I was a teacher," try "I'm skilled at making complicated ideas easy to understand." This isn't just a semantic game. It's a profound psychological shift. It roots your identity in things that belong to you, not an employer. Start a note on your phone and practice describing yourself in 3 different ways without using a job title. This becomes the vocabulary of your new identity. Step 3. Keep a narrative journal. Your brain is a storytelling machine.
It craves a coherent narrative. When you lose your job, that narrative shatters, and the feeling of being lost is your brain panicking without a story. A narrative journal helps you write the next chapter in real time. It's simple. Every day, write just 3 sentences about your transition. Not what you did, but the story of your change. For example, today I felt the ghost of my old job, but I also felt a flicker of excitement. I am in the messy middle, and that's okay. I am learning to be someone who isn't defined by productivity. This practice builds a new narrative for your brain to hold on to, turning you from a passive victim into the active author of your journey. Step 4. Find and defend one anchor. In a sea of uncertainty, you need one point of stability. This is your non-negotiable anchor. It has to be entirely within your control and have nothing to do with your career. A 20-minute walk every morning, no phone. Reading 1 chapter of a fiction book every night. A creative practice like drawing or playing an instrument. This single routine becomes the bedrock you can stand on while everything else shifts. It sends a powerful signal to your anxious brain that not everything is in flux, giving you the psychological safety to explore the vast ocean of your new identity. Step 5. Ask for reflection, not reassurance. When you feel lost, your instinct is to ask for reassurance. Do you think I made a mistake? Was I good at my old job? This is a trap. It keeps you looking backward. Instead, you need to ask for reflection. Talk to trusted friends and ask forward-looking questions. Based on what you see in me now, what do you think my strengths are? Or, when you see me get excited, what am I usually talking about? Reflection uses the people in your life as a mirror to show you who you are becoming, not as an archive to remind you of who you were. The journey of separating yourself from your job isn't a gentle uncoupling. For many of us, it's a violent shipwreck. You're tossed from the deck and left treading water in a cold, dark ocean of what now? We've walked through the lie that traps us, the chaos that follows, the grief we must endure, and the practical steps to rewrite our identity. Here's the final, crucial realization. You are not what's left over when the job is gone. You are what you choose to build in that newly cleared space. Building a new identity is an active, conscious process. It requires you to say, "I am a writer," before you're published. To say, "I am a creator," before you have an audience. You have to speak your new identity into existence through repetition and action. It doesn't magically appear, it's reinforced through the small, consistent signals you send to yourself and the world. This process is hard. It's supposed to be. But the disorientation is a sign that it's working. It's a sign you are finally moving from an identity that was given to you to one you have chosen for yourself. An identity that is broader, more resilient, and truly your own. To help you begin, I've created a free 1-page identity audit worksheet. It's a simple guide that walks you through the core steps we discussed, from naming your losses to defining your new language. The link is at the top of the description. It's my gift to you. And now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me one way you describe yourself without using a job title. Let's start building our new language, right here, together.